Welcome everybody to the debut episode of The Sports Cave. I'm Alexander Deagle, your host, The Sports Dude. I'm here with our special guest, Coach Ferris. Coach Ferris, how you doing today?
Welcome, man. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. I was doing a little article for Bleacher Report, knockout of the day. I was doing Joe Louis over Max Schmeling, doing a little bit more research after that. Trying to wonder why Joe Louis, the record of 69-3 with 55 knockouts, is not more widely recognized, or at least put up there in the debate with Muhammad Ali as the greatest heavyweight of all time. Your thoughts?
When you talk about Muhammad Ali, you're talking about the greatest skilled fighter that division has ever seen. And I don't think that anyone would argue anything differently.
Oh, naturally, Muhammad Ali is the most skilled heavyweight of all time. But skill alone doesn't do it. I mean, and I would also say, you want to talk about hand speed, Ali's number one, but who's there number two in the heavyweight division? It's got to be Joe Louis as far as hand speed for a heavyweight.
But see, here's the difference. That's debatable. I can debate that.
Well, who would you put as second fastest hands behind, if not Joe Louis?
Tyson had fast hands.
Tyson did have fast hands, but I would have to still go with Louis on that. But
the fact that it's debatable, that's what makes Muhammad Ali. There's no debating.
Right. Again, there's no debating Ali is the most skilled heavyweight of all time, but again, skill alone doesn't do it. I mean, you look at, obviously, Ali was much more skilled than Joe Frazier or Ken Norton, but he lost to both of those men once.
Joe Louis, again, when you're talking Joe Louis, you're talking about another one of the fighters who's considered in the 5 to 10 greatest heavyweights of all time. Most put him in the top 5 to 7, to be completely honest with you. And that loss to Joe Frazier happened after a 3-year layoff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at that. I don't think if you stopped writing for 3.5 years, you wouldn't be the same writer 3.5 years later. Period.
Right.
And I think that's what you have to look at.
I mean, but you're talking. I mean, it's not like Ali wasn't doing anything for those 3 years. Not like he was sitting on the couch. I mean,
no, but he wasn't in the ring, and anybody will tell you that. Look at Floyd Mayweather. When he comes back, he always says those first 2 rounds when he comes back are really difficult. You know, he's got to get back under. He did it against Joe Frazier.
I mean, he did have the tune-up fight before that, which is supposedly that's what Mayweather's doing now, is having the tune-up fight before he goes against Pacquiao. At least that's what boxing fans would like to believe.
Well, I hope he's not looking towards Pacquiao and overlooking Victor Ortiz, because that's a young, hungry, powerful fighter right there that he chose to get in the ring with. That's a quote-unquote tune-up fight. But as far as Ali is concerned, when you're not in the ring with a high level class fighter, you're not gonna. He can have all the tune-up fights in the world. He didn't tune up against anything like Joe Frazier. Okay, not to mention.
Well, obviously, I mean, there's only one Joe Frazier.
Right. But the biggest win in that, what you really take from that fight, is in the 13th round. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm in the 13th round of that fight, he took the most flush left hook that any other heavyweight in the history of the sport would have been knocked out, at least knocked out.
Right, and Ali got back
up. He got up within 2 seconds like it was nothing.
Yes, and that's one thing that gets underrated, is Ali probably also had the greatest chin of all time.
I believe he easily had the greatest chin of all time.
Yeah, to be able to, but with that 3.5 year layoff, that's also, I mean, just to go back to that real quick, that's great. You're right. 3 years he's not fighting high pedigree fighters. Maybe not any fighters. Maybe just doing the bag work. But that's also 3.5 years he's not getting banged to the body by the likes of Joe Frazier, Ken Norton.
No, and I completely agree with that statement. I agree with that. You know, he's not getting beat up, but he's not in the ring.
Right.
Let me ask you this: does Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali the first time if it's pre 3.5 years?
I think it's very possible. I mean, I think you're talking about the layoff, but Ali was still in his physical prime you talk about athletes' physical prime between 25 and 35. Ali was 29 years old at that first fight. So I would say Ali was probably at about 95% of Ali. And the biggest mistake over the layoff was just, I think, Ali's attitude of thinking that he was going to handle Joe Frazier easily. And regardless of a layoff, Ali's probably going to do that regardless for the first fight because he continuously underestimated his opponents and didn't take them as seriously as he did. I mean, not even just Joe Frazier. We're talking about, you want to talk about the Chuck Wepner fight. That's a fight that shouldn't have gone more than 3 rounds as far as the skills. You want to talk about skill set there. Chuck Wepner shouldn't have been in the fight for more than 3 rounds against Ali. He went all but the distance. He got knocked out. Well, he didn't get knocked out. He got TKO'd with 20 seconds left in the fight of a 15-round fight. And you want to talk about Ali taking things seriously. I mean, even after Wepner had that infamous knockdown of Ali, that body punch where, he came back, he says, hey, at least I knocked him down. And his manager says, yeah, but now he looks really pissed off. That's still 6 rounds. That was in the 9th round, and Ali